As Palpatine once surmised, the Force was a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. However, some Force abilities were far more unnatural than others. There are literally hundreds of different Force abilities, and I'll certainly be exploring them in more depth very soon in a future video. But in today's video, we'll be discussing just a few of the rarest and weirdest Force abilities that you've almost certainly never heard of. The first ability we will discuss today is phasing. Not much is known about how it was used or why it was so rare, but essentially it allowed Force users to walk through walls. The powerful Jedi Master An'ya Kuro was a user of this ability. The failed master of Aurra Sing, she was able to walk through walls or floors to escape from enemies, or utilize it to create deadly ambushes. The only other record of this ability being used was when Abeloth returned. Corrupted by her dark influence, many Jedi began experiencing what was known as Force psychosis. As well as causing the deterioration of a Force user's mental state, it also gave Jedi access to new powers, including phasing. Leia Organa believed that this ability was associated with the Celestials, as the Killiks, their former slaves, claimed they used to have access to this ability in the distant past. Another similar ability was teleportation. Most notably, this was used by Mother Talzin of the Night Sisters in the Clone Wars TV show. However, the Night Sisters were not the only ones who were proficient in its use. Sith Emperor Vitiate and Darth Nihilus often used this ability, and it was even rumoured that some of Palpatine's guards could teleport. This ability was usually associated with the dark side of the Force. As space-time itself would be distorted, it was highly unnatural, meaning a Force user would usually be immediately corrupted after using it. However, there was a group of Force users known as the An'ya monks, who utilized this ability without falling to the dark side. They didn't see the Force as light or dark, describing it more like a rainbow. Using this interpretation of the Force, they were able to achieve some truly incredible Force feats. By folding space, they could easily teleport not just themselves, but entire fleets of ships. Fortunately for the galaxy, the An'ya were peace-loving and only ever attacked slave ships. Another ability only really used by the An'ya was flow walking. This is likely the most powerful ability in all of Star Wars. The An'ya employed flow walking to connect with the Force by following its currents and discerning its intent. It was critical that they stay connected and grounded in the actual world while utilizing this ability, or risk losing themselves to the flow. However, if mastered, the user could go and view events from either the future or the past. Some could even subtly change events of the past or future in their favor. This ability was taught to Jacen Solo by the An'ya, who used it to go back and view the events which led to his grandfather Anakin Skywalker's fall to the dark side. As you can imagine, this ability was extremely dangerous both to the wider galaxy and the user. Just one small change could dramatically alter the course of galactic history, meaning it was used sparingly by the monks and even by Jacen Solo once he fell to the dark side. Next up, we have Deadly Sight, an ability that was able to take out entire armies if used by a powerful enough Darksider. Using this ability, Darksiders could inflict agony and suffering on their enemies simply by staring at them, causing victims' flesh to burn and smoke as they perished. The possessor of Deadly Sight had the ability to harm whole groups of enemies inside their area of view. Everyone the user stared at, even comrades, would be injured by the Deadly Sight. This ability was used during the New Sith Wars. However, not much is known about it other than that. The next ability we'll be discussing today was known as the Art of the Small. Essentially, the user would reduce their Force presence to the size of an atom. This ability actually had several uses and took several years to master. The first and most boring use of this ability was to hide one's presence in the Force, a bit like the Force Conceal ability that Palpatine used to hide his Sith persona from the Jedi. However, the more interesting use of this ability was that it allowed the Force user to perceive the universe on a molecular scale. Once in this state, the Jedi or Sith could alter the molecules to create complex structures of proteins or enzymes. This was used by the failed Sith apprentice Virga to give her tears healing properties, which could rebuild her own cells and cure deadly diseases. Interestingly, this ability was also used to great effect by Omni, a man responsible for the deaths of over 300 trillion, more than anyone else in Star Wars. Omni was able to use this ability to completely alter his body, using this Force ability to essentially make himself immortal and completely change his molecular structure. Likely by changing and improving the midichlorians in his blood, he was able to amplify his own Force powers, just like Darth Plagueis had tried to do. He used this ability to take control of Shinra, using him to take over the Yuzong-Bong species, which would ultimately unleash the bloodiest war in galactic history. The next ability is perhaps my favourite in all of Star Wars, and I would love to see it on the big screen. It is definitely one of the most overpowered abilities in Star Wars as well. Very similar to the Art of the Small ability, Alter Environment required the user to influence atoms at a molecular scale. This was one of the hardest abilities to master and required expert knowledge of physics as well as a mastery of the Force. The reason why this ability worked so well is because it didn't require the Force user to exert that much energy. Instead, the Force user would subtly manipulate the energy already present to produce cascading effects, which are really overpowered. For instance, by reducing the vibration of molecules, the Force user could reduce the temperature of anything around them to freezing temperatures. Members of the Keldor species, including Plo Koon, were highly proficient in this ability. In tandem with freezing cold temperatures, they could use the Force to create large freezing tornadoes and small storms that could quickly neutralize an enemy. Some used it in a more defensive way, by producing thick clouds of fog that disorientated entire armies. Others used it to increase or decrease the air pressure within an area, either suffocating or bursting the lungs of an enemy. By manipulating water molecules in the air, a user of Alter Environment could generate intense flash floods or perilous hailstorms. If the user focused on small reverberations in the planet's crust, small earthquakes could be produced. If used in the ocean, the energy already present could be used to create giant waves or deadly whirlpools. By rubbing molecules together, a Force user could create intense friction, allowing them to produce heat. This could then be used to create torrents of fire or to superheat an opponent's flesh, burning them or causing them to spontaneously combust. A pretty nasty way to go. This was famously used by the Night Sisters, but other Force users such as Palpatine have also been seen using it. Interestingly, Alter Environment allowed Force users to produce a variety of Force lightning. By taking advantage of the static energy already present in the air, huge lightning strikes could be created that would devastate an opponent. And as far as we know, this did not require hatred or other dark side emotions like other variants of Force lightning. Alter Environment was used to its greatest extent by Sith Emperor Vitiate, who literally ravaged an entire planet by manipulating its weather systems. However, although this ability is overpowered, its potential was limited due to the fact that it still required a user to focus and expend energy when using it. But that is not the case for the next ability on this list. We will now be exploring two closely linked abilities, Tutominus and Force Drain. Tutominus is usually considered to be the light side variant of Force Drain. However, Tutominus was also used by the Sith for a variety of offensive purposes. The core tenet of Tutominus was that the user would absorb harmful types of energy and then contain them within their bodies. A powerful practitioner could use this to absorb practically any form of energy, from the searing heat of a lightsaber to dangerous electromagnetic radiation. As I've explored over on my YouTube Shorts channel a few times, Tutominus could also be used to stop bullets, perhaps the most dangerous weapon to a Jedi. Used by a master of this technique, Tutominus essentially allowed the user to become invulnerable to all energy and ballistic attacks, with Darth Vader using it to create a force field around himself that stopped all incoming projectiles. However, being able to stop an attack was not the greatest benefit of Tutominus. Force wielders could use the destructive energy directed at them for their own needs. For instance, a Sith might use the energy from a blaster to create a powerful blast of Force lightning, while a Jedi might use the heat of a lightsaber to augment and supercharge their Force speed. There also seems to be no limit on how much energy a Force user could absorb and utilize. Their only limit was how powerful they were within the Force and how much mastery they had over this ability. For example, one Jedi named Corran Horn used the heat energy from a volcano to dramatically increase their telekinetic abilities. Another time, he was able to absorb the power of several explosions to cast a powerful Force illusion to confuse his enemies. Force Drain is probably the ultimate form of Tutominus. However, instead of absorbing energy from the physical world, the wielder would drain the Force energy contained within all living beings. At a small scale, this could be used to weaken a victim, whilst bolstering the user's own abilities and even healing wounds. Some Darksiders use this in incredibly creative ways. For instance, Darth Malak captured Jedi and basically put them in batteries, using their Force energy to fight his former master, Darth Revan. A similar Jedi battery technique was used by the Rakata, an ancient race of powerful beings that took over the galaxy. Like Malak, they drained these Force users to power their advanced technology and weaponry. However, this ability had its downsides. It was highly addictive and eventually would entirely consume its user. The best example of this was of course Darth Nihilus. He became so addicted to consuming Force energy that he literally became a wound in the Force. His flesh was entirely consumed, and eventually he required the life force of entire planets simply to temporarily satiate his intense hunger. It is estimated that Darth Nihilus killed over 6 billion sentient beings, plus the entire ecology of several planets. Because of this, Force Drain is one of the most powerful abilities, as long as you're fine with becoming a literal slave to the dark side like Darth Nihilus. And that's all I have for today, guys. I'll definitely be making a video on the different Force abilities at some point in the next few months, so make sure to subscribe for that if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, may the Force be with you.